man who fought apartheid, who helped to found the ANC, form a political party that is now against the party he loved so much. Can you explain to Ghanaians why you did that?
Well, it is not a secret that South Africa, historically, was the first country to establish an African political party to fight for freedom. And it had very clear reasons why that was the case. And I think it even went further than South Africa, influenced Africa to a large extent, particularly the countries around South Africa followed what South Africa was doing. And I think the ANC really represented the oppressed people. And we fought for a long time, precisely because South Africa has the biggest number of whites in the African continent. The white influence was quite big. That is why, much as it was the first to establish a national liberation movement, but it was the last to be free. It took many, many years. And then in the process of the fight, we very clearly made it very clear what type of freedom we wanted. We did not just talk about it in general. We went to the people of South Africa and asked them what type of freedom would they want the day we get our independence. And this was discussed by the entire country. We finally, the people emerged with a document called the Freedom Charter, which represents the views and the wishes of the South African people, the oppressed. And the document is still there. Our white government charged the leaders with treason for that document, where they thought it was moving against their own interests. And finally, they were proved by court that that document was absolutely correct. And that document says a lot about the land, about the wealth of the country, and everything. When we took over the country, we have not been able to implement that document. Now, that is first disappointment to the people of the country who had said to this organization, this is what we want. And the organization agreed that that was true. We had a tendency that the manner in which we reached our freedom, which we understood from a different kind of angle, that because there had been such a fight for a long time, we needed to have a kind of negotiations which will allow us to move. And the first point was, because we've been fighting for so long, we needed to get used to work together. That's why we had something called the what we call the government of national unity, because we're trying to unite the nation that had been fighting for so many people had died. Some died in prison, blah, blah, blah. But the belief was, once we finished the first term, the ANC then would take over, which indeed happened. Now, that's when it was supposed to implement its program, but it did not.
This is the ANC under Mandela?
That is starting from Mandela. From Mandela, Mandela only was in charge of the country for one term, which was the government of national unity. So he did not have to do any much things, except certain things. But thereafter, we're supposed to change and implement the will of the people that it had given us, that said to us, once you get free, there must be everything of what is in the Freedom Charter, right? It did not happen. But with time, as we were getting into the third, what is it? 30 years. Yeah, 30 years. We were faced with a situation wherein the situation was deteriorating rather than moving forward. For reasons which are very long to talk about. It was this, that because with time, the leaders who were emerging were no longer just moving slowly, perhaps undermining the power policies, etc. They were actually galloping to change and did not move the way we've been moving, wherein they were now moving away from the policies of the ANC, no longer talking about what the ANC stands for. In fact, quite a number of them being very friendly to those who were oppressing us before.
But let me just get this timeline straight. So Mandela is president from 94 to 1999. Thabo Mbeki takes over from 99 to 2008. There's a 1 year gap with Mr. Motlanthe, and then you come in 2009 to 2018. So you've had a long time. So did this deterioration coincide with your leadership too? Because you said after Mandela's government of national unity, the next government could not implement the charter. So that must have been in Mbeki. So what did you do in your time to implement
During my time, I'm sure if you look at the history of our country, you would see what I did. I did make attempts to implement what I believed needed to be implemented. You must also be aware that I could not finish my last term. I was, in fact, pushed out because the feeling was that I would be maybe doing a little bit more than what I had done. If you're in South Africa, South Africans will tell you what changes were brought during that time, because I was very clear that this is what we stood for, this is what I joined the organization for. But for the fact that I was trying to implement some of the things, it was then that if you were already maybe a journalist, you'll remember, I was given all the names, all the names by those who were feeling I should not be leading the country. And I finally was forced to resign because I was doing what I believed needed to be done. So I believed that, and I then went back and looked at the organization going down even faster in terms of not doing what it was supposed to be doing as directed by the people of the country.